My own father-in-law is from Egypt and fits that very much. And his vitamin D, when he lived in Kentucky, and when his vitamin D was checked, when he was having some cognitive issues, was extremely low. So here's why it's important. So vitamin D is a fascinating compound. It's really more related to things like estrogen and testosterone than it is, for example, to vitamin B. And so this thing, when you take the vitamin D or when you make it on your skin, of course, from your exposure to ultraviolet, it binds to vitamin D receptors. There are a couple of them that enters the nucleus of the cell, and it changes the production of RNA from about 900 different genes. So it's a remarkable, remarkable molecule. And these genes have to do with everything from, of course, bone formation to things like your cognition, synapse formation, atherosclerosis, on and on, anti-cancer effects, by the way. So there are all these things that happen with vitamin D. And unfortunately, many of us are sitting in houses. We're not really made to be living in here 24/7. We're made to be outdoors getting that exposure. Now, what happens is, it's a very interesting evolutionary point. The color of your skin means nothing except where your ancestors lived latitude-wise about 40,000 years ago. So if your ancestors live near the equator, you're going to be darker. If your ancestors live farther from the equator, you're going to be lighter. That's all it means. So what happens is many people were living years ago near the equator, but now they may be living in Wisconsin, or they may be living in Canada, or they may be living, even in California. So this means that you may not have the right matchup. Now, in thousands of years to come, what will happen is wherever you're living, your skin is going to adapt to that latitude. And the people who moved south are going to get darker, and the people who moved north are going to get lighter over time. But it takes many generations. So what happens is you're now mismatched. If you have dark skin, but you're living in a light skin area of the world, so latitude-wise, then you will have a harder time keeping your vitamin D up because you're resisting. Now, the great news is you'll have fewer issues with things like melanoma and skin cancers. So each way it works is going to have some pros and some cons. Okay, no problem. Check your vitamin D and optimize yours. You really want to be in that 50 to 80 range is good. But so many of Americans are 15, 20, even 25 is suboptimal. You want to be above that. And especially you have times in the wintertime where it will drop really low. I have this problem myself where in the wintertime, I get down. It's like, I have the so-called seasonal affective disorder. You need to be out there getting that vitamin D, getting that exposure. And so this is absolutely true, what you said. And so people need to check their vitamin D levels. And there's multiple studies showing that low vitamin Ds are associated with greater risk for cognitive decline.
Yeah, definitely. Cognitive decline. I mean, you see some of the mental illness rates. You see homicidality, and it seems like there is a strong link with low vitamin D and almost every chronic disease, including this one.
Cancer, cardiovascular disease, dementia. I mean, you're right. It's amazing. It's a very, very important molecule.
Yeah. And we're Puerto Rican. My family live in Massachusetts, but that's a big mismatch, because we've got coming into winter, and that's the time where we all feel it. We need to get some extra vitamin D to keep our levels in a place where we feel like ourselves. So super important.
Yeah, that's interesting. When I was growing up, I was in a surf club, and we went to Puerto Rico. Beautiful, beautiful country to go surfing. I was beautiful areas right out near Mayaguez out there. Las Palmas, Rincon, just absolutely beautiful place.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, it is a beautiful place, and we hope to be visiting soon. So Yeah, no, that's great. It's a big difference from Massachusetts, and you know, it's a great place to get back to your roots, which we hope to be doing with my dad soon.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you know, from vitamin D, now we go to something else that's also been a big keyword when you think of Alzheimer's lately, because more people are gaining awareness of it, and that's the Alzheimer's gene, ApoE4, as it's been termed. Why is ApoE4, apolipoprotein E4, been called the Alzheimer's gene?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it is the most common genetic risk for Alzheimer's. There are, over 100, as you pointed out with Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's done such beautiful work with genetics. There are dozens and dozens of genes, around 100, that are, in total, that give you risk for Alzheimer's. But the common one with very significant risk, which kind of outstrips the others, is ApoE4. So ApoE is apolipoprotein E. You can be there's a 2, a 3, and a 4. You get, of course, one copy from your mother, one copy from your father. The most common is ApoE33. So I checked myself. I'm an ApoE33. That's kind of like vanilla. However, 25% of the population has a single copy of ApoE4, and about 2.25% of the population has 2 copies. Now, if you have 0 copies, your lifetime risk is about 9%. It's not 0, but it's not super high. If you have a single copy, your lifetime risk is about 30%. And if you have 2 copies, and that's 7 million Americans, 75 million Americans have 1 copy, 7 million Americans have 2 copies. Your lifetime risk is close to 100%. And there was a paper recently showing that if you got to 85, about 90% of those people had developed Alzheimer's. Well, okay, but they weren't doing the right things during their lifetime. So again, everyone should find out. Everyone should be able to avoid it.
Yeah.
We have many, many examples of people who are doing very well avoiding the problem. A good example, Julie G., who founded the website apoe4.info. There are over 8,000 individuals who are ApoE4 positive, either single copy or both copies. And they are doing much like the protocol so that they can avoid dementia. So I think that, in the future, again, this is going to be essentially Alzheimer's is becoming optional. So the question is, how does this work? ApoE4 is something that carries lipids. So it's like your butcher. It's carrying the fats, right? How the heck would that have anything to do with Alzheimer's? So we published this and did this, and this is the very interesting work of Dr. Ramahan Rao, who's one of my colleagues, and he and I worked together for over 20 years in the lab. And what he found was really interesting. ApoE4 was known to bind to specific receptors. It enters the cell, but what hadn't been appreciated until his work is that it enters the nucleus, not all of it, but as an important piece of it, an important part, about 10% of all the ApoE4 enters the nucleus, and it interacts with 1,700 different gene promoters. So it is actually not just your butcher carrying the fats, it's your senator. It's changing the laws of the land. It's literally changing how your DNA performs. And overall, if you look at the groups of genes, you could not paint a better story than for Alzheimer's. So it has things that are pro-inflammatory, as example. So what really happens when you're ApoE4 positive, and by the way, this is the primordial gene for hominids. When we descended from the simians back 5 to 7 million years ago, for 96% of our evolution as hominids, we were all ApoE4. Just in the last 220,000 years, ApoE3 appeared, and then just in the last 80,000 years, ApoE2 appeared. So ApoE4 is a pro-inflammatory gene. It turns on things. So it helps when we came down out of the trees and started walking in the savannah and we're puncturing our feet, we're fighting with our brethren, we're fighting with our food, all these things. We need that pro-inflammation. So for example, if you're ApoE4, if you take someone who's ApoE3 and someone who's ApoE4 and you feed them both food which is filled with microbes, which is, of course, pre-fire, this is what everybody was eating. The one with the ApoE3 will die, and the one with the ApoE4 will live because they're able to fight those microbes better.
Yeah.
And so it's not that one's better or worse. It's that one is adapted more for a more pro-inflammatory area. Things like third world,
Performance.
things like
Yeah.
Uncooked food
Yeah.
and stress. The other one is evolved. They don't do as well with the stress, but they can live longer if they're in a stress-free environment. So,
Yeah.
okay, now that we understand this, you can simply make it so the ApoE4 individuals have less of that. Make sure that they don't have these insults because they are hyper responders to these insults.
Yeah.
Okay, so just dial down on the insults. They won't get that response that ultimately leads to Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease.